Now, during the pandemic, the A380 passenger jet was all but relegated to the scrap heap as travel demand collapsed. The plane is, after all, a major fuel guzzler, and airlines weren't keen to fly it at low capacity. But now its fortunes are undergoing a dramatic reversal. Lufthansa is among a number of carriers that have decided to reinstate it after a big rise in demand for travel. Our reporter Dan Hirschfeld documented one A380's return to the skies.
The first flight in more than 2 years. The Airbus A380 with call sign Mike Kilo heads from the city of Teruel in eastern Spain toward its new home in Frankfurt. Like other airlines, Lufthansa originally pulled the A380 from its fleet just before the pandemic. Some of those aircraft ended up parked in Teruel, essentially mothballed. At the time, there didn't seem to be much of a future for the world's largest airplane. The A380 consumes vast amounts of kerosene, making it uneconomical when not fully booked. Now, capacity is exactly what airlines want. With the A380 holding anywhere from 500 to 850 passengers, it's back off the bench.
The reason we're reactivating the A380 is, for one thing, the demand for tickets has suddenly and surprisingly taken off. The other reason is that manufacturers can't just deliver new airplanes on short notice.
It's not as simple as boarding and taking off. First, the planes have to be unwrapped and prepared for flight operations, both the exterior as well as the interior. Jose Moliner from engineering specialist Tarmac Aerosave says that 2 years of deep sleep is a challenge for the delicate flight systems.
They are removing all the seals, removing the covers of the engines, removing the covers of the flight code, of the landing gears, removing all the seals on the doors. So this takes around 2,500 hours, 4 weeks of work, and around 40 people working in total for this aircraft.
It falls to these two men, Richard Lenz and Matthias Spuder, to bring the Mike Kilo home. It's the first of an expected 4 of the giant aircraft to be brought back into service. An emotional moment for the pair. Both helped retire the legendary aircraft in Teruel years ago.
Mike Kilo, da bin ich wieder.
Hey, Mike Kilo, it's me again. The two men say that passengers love this model. That the A380 is receiving another chance at life is also something special for pilots and cabin crews alike, they say.
Sure, bringing it here was an absolutely sad story. I actually had a lump in my throat as we pulled the final airplane into its spot. It was almost depressing, really a kind of graveyard feel to the whole place. Today there's so much more going on here. The planes are being worked on. We're definitely not the only airline bringing the A380 back, so there's really a great feeling here.
But before the A380 can begin its summer schedule, cockpit crews will have to receive new training. 2.5 years after the plane saw its wings clipped, only 12 Lufthansa pilots are still certified to fly it.
Let's bring in aviation expert Andreas Schwedt now. Andreas, airlines like Lufthansa and Etihad have done a full 180 when it comes to reinstating this jet. We know there's been a demand surge, but is there anything else going on?
Yeah, it's quite surprising, this big turnaround in the decisions by these two big airlines. There's one important underlying factor also for the new importance to the A380, especially to Lufthansa, because they, as many other airlines, are suffering from severe delivery delays of ordered new Boeing aircraft they had been hoping for already. Now the new biggest Boeing jet, the 777-9, will not be delivered before 2025, as Boeing says, creating a big gap in capacity. And that means for Lufthansa, they really have to depend on these A380s that have been in the desert for years now.
OK, but having said all that, the A380 is a huge jet and it's a big fuel consumer as well. How high would you say environmental concerns are among airline chiefs?
Environmental concerns are at the top on the agenda for everybody. It's really obvious. So the COVID problem, the pandemic, seems to be far behind. Everybody is talking about sustainable flying, and they ought to be doing that. But you also have to keep in mind the A380, if it's fully loaded, meaning in theory up to almost 500 passengers, it's still a very efficient aircraft and also a very environmentally friendly aircraft, given that it can take so many people into the air at once. So in that case, if it's actually the capacity that's needed and if they actually can sell all the seats on board, is even in today's standards, although it's basically 1990s aircraft concept, it's still a very environmentally friendly plane. But of course, if it's only half full, it doesn't make much sense.
Right. And looking beyond the A380, how well do you think the aviation industry is equipped to deal with this massive rise in demand?
Yeah, there was the big question, for example, for Etihad. They always said we only will bring back the A380 just in exceptional cases of really unforeseeable surges in demand. And this is apparently what they reckon is happening now. And in a way, it was something that could be foreseen, actually, because, of course, there's still pent-up demand after the pandemic to travel. But the numbers of travelers really soared back so amazingly, so quickly, was probably a bit beyond airlines' imagination before. But now they apparently consider themselves lucky to still have this kind of a stored fleet on the sidelines, which they can activate within a few months' time now. So that's a big relief for the airlines being able actually to fill this demand peak at a fairly short notice.
All right. Andreas Speth, thank you so much.
Thank you.